Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Deving Saraswating Vyasam. Tathojayam Udirayet. I'll do whatever you do. Oh, do you have it? Nasta Parayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Next.
Oh no,
That's it. Jufini. Okay, great. So, Haribo. Okay. So we're looking at the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Uno, Text Uno. Okay, questions by Vidura. Shukadev Goswami, do we read this together?
yeah, we're going to read 1 through 16 translation.
Okay, so we're all chanting, sing it together.
That's really.
Okay, I'll just do whatever your wish is, Mike. Okay. Okay. As you like.
Shukadev Goswami said, after renouncing his prosperous home and entering the forest, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of his grace Maitreya Rishi.
What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not take any care of Duryodhana's house.
The king asked Shukadev Goswami, where and when did the meeting and discussion take place between Saint Vidura and his grace Maitreya Muni? Kindly oblige, my lord, and describe this to us.
Saint Vidura was a great and pure devotee of the Lord. Therefore, his questions to his grace Rishi Maitreya must have been very purposeful on the highest level and approved by learned circles.
Sri Sutta Goswami said the great sage Sukadeva Goswami was highly experienced and was pleased with the king. Thus, being questioned by the king, he said to him, please hear the topics attentively.
Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons, and thus he set fire to the lacquer house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas.
The king did not forbid his son Dushasana's abominable actions of grabbing the hair of Draupadi, the wife of the godly king Yudhisthira, even though her tears washed the red dust on her breast.
Yudhisthira was born without any enemy, was unfriendly,
defeated in Haribol. Wow.
Yudhishthir, who was born without any enemy, was unfairly defeated in gambling. But because he had taken the vow of truthfulness, he went off to the forest. When he came back in due course and begged the return of his rightful share of the kingdom, he was refused by Dhritarashtra,
Dhritarashtra.
who was overwhelmed by illusion.
Lord Krishna was sent by Arjuna into the assembly as the spiritual master of the whole world, and although his words were heard by some, like Bhishma, as pure nectar, it was not so for the others, who were completely bereft of the last farthing of past pious works. The king Dhritarashtra, or Duryodhana, did not take the words of Lord Krishna very seriously.
When Vitra was invited by the elder brother Dhritarashtra for consolation, he entered the house and gave instruction which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and the instruction by Vidura are approved by expert ministers of state.
You must now return the legitimate share to Yudhishthir, who has no enemies and who has been forbearing through untold sufferings due to your offenses. He is waiting with his younger brothers, among whom is a revengeful being, breathing heavily like a snake. Surely you are afraid of him.
Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, has accepted the sons of Pritha as his kinsmen, and all the kings of the world are with Lord Sri Krishna. He is present in his home with all his family members, the king and princes of the Yadu dynasty, who have conquered an unlimited number of rulers, and he is their lord.
You are maintaining offense personified, Duryodhana, as your infallible son, but he is envious of Lord Krishna. And because you're thus maintaining a non-devotee of Krishna, you're devoid of all auspicious qualities. Relieve yourself of this ill fortune as soon as possible and do good to the whole family.
While speaking thus, Vidura, whose personal character was esteemed by respectable persons, was insulted by Duryodhana, who was swollen with anger and whose lips were trembling. Duryodhana was in company with Karna, his younger brothers, and maternal uncle Shakuni.
Who asked him to come here? The son of a kept mistress. He is so crooked that he spies in the interest of the enemy against those on whose support he has grown up. Toss him out of the palace immediately and leave him with only his breath.
Thus being pierced by arrows through his ears and afflicted to the core of his heart, Vidura placed his bow on the door and quit his brother's palace. He was not sorry, for he considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. Hare Krishna. What a great story. All right. So, and this rips. Swayandanur Tvari Nithaya Mayam Pratu Pura Narmasud Sitam Adjutama Karnabanayara Daktavyato Guru Manayana.
Swayam Danurdvari Nidhaya Maya. Karma Shukari.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Synonyms. Swayam, he himself. Nandavadi, about the Lord. Nidhaya, keeping. Aya, external nature. Ratu, brothers. Raha, from the palace. Paramasu, the court. Taditaha, afflict. Api, in spite of. Saha, he, Vidura. Yitham, like this. Ati Urvana, severely. Karana, here. Anahai, like arrows. Doubting sword. Ayat, sight. Guru, great. Bhagavad. Translation. Okay, let's do it together. Thus being pierced by arrows through his ears, looked to the core of his heart. Vidura had placed his bow on the door with his brother's palace. He was not sorry, for he considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. Hare Krishna and purport by Divine Grace HH Bhaktimarg Swami Prabhupada. Is this the lengthy purport? Average size? Okay. Can we charade it out? But I'll just leave it. Yeah. It's possible. Oh yeah, sure. And a small. All right. Okay, thanks. We have a certain technique. Thank you. It's nice to be here again, Hare Krishna, after a long time. I remember you, your face at least, Hare Krishna. It's been 4 years. All right, here we go. A pure devotee of the Lord is never perturbed by an awkward position created by the external energy of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 3:27, it is stated, Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara mudatma karataham iti manyate. A conditioned soul is absorbed in material existence under the influence of different modes of external energy. Absorbed in the false ego, he thinks he is doing everything by himself. Think. The external energy of the Lord, the material nature, is fully under the control of the Supreme Lord. And the conditioned soul is fully under the grip of the external energy. Therefore, the conditioned soul is fully under the control of the law of the Lord.
but due to illusion only, he thinks himself independent of his activities. Duryodhana was acting under, lost it, under such influence of the external nature, by which he would be vanquished at the ultimate end. He could not accept the sound advice of Vidura, but, on the contrary, he insulted that great soul, who was the well-wisher of the whole family. Went a little too far there. Vidura could understand this because he was a pure devotee of the Lord. In spite of being very strongly insulted by Vidura's words, Vidura could see that Duryodhana, under the influence of Maya, the external energy, was making progress on the path toward his own ruination. He therefore considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme, yet he also saw how the internal energy of the Lord helped him in that particular situation. A devotee is always in a renounced temperament because the worldly attractions can never satisfy him. Vidura was never attracted by the royal palace of his brother. He was always ready to leave the place and devote himself completely to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Now, he got the opportunity by the grace of grace of Duryodhana. And instead of being devotee, sorry. Okay. Thanked him for me because he gave me the chance to live alone in a holy place and fully engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. The word gata vyataha, without being sorry, is significant here because Vidura was relieved from the tribulations which trouble every man entangled in material activities. He therefore thought that there was no need to defend his brother with his bow, because his brother was meant for ruination. Thus he left the palace before Duryodhana could act. Maya, the supreme energy of the Lord, acted here both internally and externally. Thank you very much for helping out. So this is a great story, and the seeds have been planted for, I like the word ruination, of at least a certain sector of society. I like namely as the Kauravas. And if you all know the history, there were the good guys and the bad guys, just to make it real simple. And the Kauravas were definitely the bad guys because they stood for adharma. And adharma means, non-morality. And that's why Krishna was so focused on Yudhishthira, who he considered to be the emblem of righteousness, to rule, to be the king. Yudhishthira wasn't so eager to be a leader in that capacity, but he was under suppression. I mean, when God is putting some stepping on your tail, I guess I better go. So Krishna was encouraging him, and he was encouraging Arjuna, the same kind of spirit that Krishna projected when he was dealing with Arjuna just prior to the war, right? And Arjuna, as you know, he was hesitant, very reluctant for different reasons. He had his excuses, but Krishna just was very firm in his position. We've gone through all this stuff before. It's just time to get going with business. And the real business is to go out there and do what's right. Now, I think everyone is going to go through this kind of experience, and you probably already have had this encounter before when you're not quite sure what to do when it comes to decision making. And I think that what really can be helpful to any of us, it's like I have a god brother, a senior god brother to me, and I asked, what do you think is right? Well, do what is right. That was the answer. Do what is right. Just do what is right. And so how do you know what is right? Well, you have to have some standards that you're familiar with. And the Shastras will help us a lot. They're kind of like the law books. There's policies here that you just have to follow. So Yudhishthira was that righteous kind of person. He liked to do what was right. And, you know, he had that reputation. He never once lied. There's one instance where he told what they call a little white lie, right? And that's another story into itself. But I think the highlight here is Vidura. I was really kind of surprised. I kind of forgot about this, but he was in the warrior capacity. He had a bow. And you know, I never thought about it like that. He usually carries a profile of being very Brahminical, you know. His weapon is like a book like this, you know. And I'll tell you a funny story about one instance where I was walking across the US and I was in Toledo, and I was crossing on a bridge over the interstate, which I think is 95, the one that goes north-south, if I'm not mistaken. 95, 75. Okay, all right. We appreciate your honesty. One of those places. So I was walking over the bridge and just sticking to my route. And there was a couple of, you know, African-American guys. They were coming, they were munching on popcorn. They were at the other end of the bridge. We met right in the middle. And the one fellow who was munching the most, he said, "Hey man, are you a monk?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am." I said, "Hey, can you teach me how to fat?" You know, and I said, "Well, in our tradition, like I have friends who take up martial arts, but I'm not one of those types. Like in our tradition, we teach gentleness, and we apply that first. First, we use logic, reasoning, use our words, you know, to try to get out of a fight and try to avoid what could be an ugly, bloody mess. And so we use this weapon first, like logic and the ancient book texts called the Vedas. And if that fails, then we use the weapon. You know? So my understanding about Vidura, he always comes across as a man of reason. And that's why we love him so much. He was very, very level-headed. You know? And he had these dealings with Dhritarashtra, his older brother. And older brothers can be a pain sometimes, you know. They can be really a lot of fun. You learn a lot from them. And they can be a guide and inspiration. In this case, Dhritarashtra, he had some weaknesses. First of all, he was blind, but we won't hold that against him, like he was physically blind. But he was actually spiritually blind, and that is a defect. He lacked insight on all levels, you know. And he was affectionate towards his oldest son, Duryodhan, who was an extremely passionate and greedy, can I say B-A-S-T-A-R-D, or just a bad guy. Okay. Those are old words. Maybe it's not a PC word, but I mean, so Dhritarashtra lacked the ability to make good decisions. It was always based on affection for his sons, And also Dhritarashtra was given the mandate to look after his nephews. In that regard, he really should have always had equal vision with these two sets of sons, cousins, right? But naturally, he was affectionate towards his own, and he wanted them to have their way, headed by Duryodhana. So it was like this, if you can picture it like this, Dhritarashtra is the blind king. He's not very mobile for obvious reasons. They probably didn't have walkers in those days. He was kind of affixed to his seat. And then Duryodhana, his son, would whisper in his one ear and get up over an issue. And then in the other ear would be Vidura. So Vidura would give some sound advice. He always came from the point of Brahman, like spiritual consciousness, higher consciousness. But Duryodhana was coming from another level, which was material consciousness, lower consciousness, really, external. So it was like Dhritarashtra would listen to Vidura for a minute. Yes, you're right. That makes sense. Then he'd listen in the other ear to his son Duryodhana. Said, "Yes, you're right." Final decision always went in favor of the son, who was a greedy person, and so that's why we can say that Dhritarashtra, the decision lie with him, and he made the wrong choices. There really shouldn't have been a war. There really shouldn't have been even this game, the gambling game of rolling dice, which was a game rigged. And Duryodhana, he kind of pulled out. He was the one that was supposed to be dice on behalf of the Kauravas, but he brought in his uncle Shakuni, who was a wizard at the game. He just knew every throw, and he was just super. He's a champion at the game. And against Yudhishthir, who had a reputation for being lousy at the game. So from the get-go, it was just not unfair. It was not a good match at all. But it went on because, again, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, they ruled. They sort of, basically called the shots. Let's put it that way. So that's where the trouble began. The reason why we like Vidura is that he always took a neutral position, and that is the position of wisdom. And he had nothing to lose. He wasn't a married person. He was a single guy. And but he was always interested in seeing that there would be wellness that would prevail in the palace. Now, whenever you talk about a palace or a castle, there's always intrigue. There's never any story of a house that's too big where there's no politics, and underhandedness. It's a Krishna house, yeah. But this is not, like one of those big grandiose places, you know what I mean? This is a cozy little, fireplacey. Get around the campfire, tell good stories, sing kumbaya, all that kind of stuff. Chant Hare Krishna. Raindrops keep falling on my head. So it's that kind of place, right? So that you could bet any story, whether it's the history of Europe or the history of the East, whether it's China or India, whenever there's a big house, too big, there's going to be intrigue. And probably the floors are too cold, so everybody is, irritated. There's not enough heat going on, and so naturally they're going to be around each other's necks. And that's the history of palaces. And the reason why people are so intrigued with these places is because there is a rich history there. Like probably the most famous building in the world is the Taj Mahal. And if you know anything about that, there's a love story behind it all. There's all this intrigue. Shahjahan, the father of Aurangzeb, Aurangzeb put his father in prison, and he built a structure nearby where he was like in prison, and he could there was enough of a hole there that you could see the Taj Mahal being built and eat your heart out, Dad. You know, and so it was a very that's why it's a big attraction. It's not just the architectural wonder. Frankly, I would go. I would vie for any South Indian temple. Those beautiful structures that are sort of pyramidal with demigods all around them and all full of color over the Taj Mahal. To me, Taj Mahal is like bland. It's like pasta with no tomato sauce on it. But getting back to the story here, it was so all this unnerving dynamics going on, and Vidura was not being taken seriously. His advice was not valued by his older brother, and the straw that broke the camel's back is when Duryodhana said something about Vidura's mother, kept maid servant or something like that. And so for a guy, when his mother's insulted, it's the worst thing. You want to get somebody angry, that's what you do. Talk about the person's mother. So another story, when I was in a place called Swift Current in Saskatchewan, I was accommodated by an Indian family. They had migrated to Canada from Africa. Idi Amin, that and so they left there. They were terrorized, like so many people, and they left to come to a place like Canada, the U.S., and all that. So I stayed in there. They weren't terribly devotional, these people, but it was very interesting. It was Saturday afternoon. I'd done my quota of walking, whatever it was, 35, 40 kilometers or 25 miles. And I spent a little time there just kind of recuperating and relaxing. And the lady in the household, she had in her room, which was like a living room, a massive screen, much bigger than this. And she was watching the soap opera from India, really getting into it, So there's no way I could talk to her. And then I walked over to the guy's place with an equally same size of screen, and he was watching the wrestling match. Okay. So I thought it was just, I haven't been watching TV for years. That's why I'm happy. Okay. I was looking at this thing that was going on. So, how it's all like a show, it's theatrics, behind the game or the fight or whatever it is. And so the one guy was talking to the other contestant, was just irritating him, talking about his mother. First, I was anything to agitate him. But when he mentioned about his mother, your mother, this and that and this and that, then he got really, and then they got physical, right? So when Vidura heard that remark was made by his nephew, that something about his mother and that she's like a low caste kind of person, Vidura in his mind, it was set. Enough is enough. I'm not going to take this anymore. I don't need to be here. I'm just going to go for a long chapel walk, more or less. Going a long walk and go for purification. Go on what they call parikrama. Parikrama means it's like a padayatra. You go on foot and you go and visit one holy place to the next, and you just get purified. And this way, you can't really get attached to anything when you're on like one of those kind of programs where you just walk and learn detachment. Usually there's two kinds of people that really thrive on this kind of lifestyle. Like when you're a sannyasi or something like that, or a brahmachari, you just travel on your own and you just don't get really entangled with anything. Or a criminal. Nobody wants a criminal, And you could maybe know a criminal because he's missing an arm or a leg or some other important body part for having done something wrong. And said, oh, nice knowing you, guy, but you keep moving on. Keep going down the road. And usually for a sannyasi to travel, it usually means that when you come to a place of destination where you might be invited by a nice family, You wouldn't stay there for any more than 3 days. Either that, or you stay as long as it takes to milk a cow, which is about 20 minutes. It's not very long. And I was raised on a farm, so my dad used to get me up in the morning. And okay, John, it's time to get up. So I get up and milk the cow. It was 5:30. So that's how I got trained to be up early in the morning. Maybe that's nothing for some of you folks, but it is for regular carnies. Okay, so so milking the cow 20 minutes. That's about it. The idea is that you have to keep moving. You just can't get attached to anything. So Vidura lived that kind of lifestyle. Is one of these sort of icons or one of our heroes for people who like to walk long distances. There's Vidura, there's Balaram. You heard about him, Balaram. He didn't get Krishna's brother. He didn't get involved in the war. It was too much of a conflict of interest. I don't think we need to talk about that, but Balaram decided to go on pilgrimage also for purification. And then there's also another walking icon, and his name is, well, yes, does this tell you? No, but this gesture, 3 of these steps, Vamana. Vamana, he's one of the main avatars, and he's known for his walking, and he covered incredible distance with 3 steps. I wish we could. All right, so getting back to Vidura, he decided this is not the place for me anymore. It's just thick with envy, and this place called the palace, and I just got to get out of the palace and see the real world, meet people. So this might be a lesson for some of us. Maybe that's what some of you felt before you joined Krishna House. Maybe I said, enough is enough. It's all this Monday. I've experienced a few things. Nothing seems to work. Let me make a major shift, a paradigm shift, and try this Krishna thing. Right? And so I think you're quite happy about the choice to come here. Am I right about that? Because if you're not agreeing, then I'm sure someone will talk to you. So that's the idea, is to relish. There has to be a point in someone's life where you travel a little bit, I think that's always been part of our ancestral reality. Anybody Irish by birth or ancestral, So probably the Irish followed St. Patrick somewhere to the rock at the edge of the, to the ocean. Pilgrimage is big for the Catholics. And anybody got a Hindu background? Yeah, okay. So, probably some sadhus, or you've probably read and heard about the sadhus who just went on long distances, had no fixed address. So, any Buddhist followers? Anyway, same thing, and that was, those were major trips that offered transformation, self-transformation. Nowadays, it takes on a different slant. Like to get here, I took a trip from Toronto to Orlando. You know what happens in Orlando? Like everyone goes there, the happiest place on the earth, blah, blah, blah. And so many people, especially with kids, are coming to Orlando to see a duck and a mouse. And that's their idea of pilgrimage. Then some people, they go to Vegas. And that's another thing. Yeah, let's go to, have a holiday in Vegas, yay. You go to the airport and they got slot machines. They don't even give you any break. Like, there's no even breathing space. You just hop right into the gambling program. Generally, gambling is not, it's frowned down upon, but the Kshatriyas used to do it. That's why it even made its way into this story with Yudhishthira. A king like Yudhishthira would be obliged if he was approached by a woman, say, okay, you're my next wife, that kind of, or, and as Prabhupada explains the logic behind it, usually the female population is greater than the male population, so all the women need to be looked after, so an able man, competent person would take care. So that was the idea. Kshatriyas were there to protect. And what else? Okay, and if someone challenged you and you're a Kshatriya, you can't back off, especially there's always the public around you. And if someone challenges you to a duel and no, I'm not up to it, you know, there's just no way that you can get away with that. You know? So these are some of the cultural norms of the past. And it was quite natural for people to also leave when you say enough is enough. And I'm not going to take these insults. And nobody's correcting him. There's the other thing. One of the most beautiful stories in the Bhagavatam is the story of Dhruva. Are you familiar with that? That young prince. And he had a brother, Uttam, and their father's name was Uttanapat. It's one of the oldest stories in the Puranas, you know. And so there was one instance where, well, this king, he had two wives. One was Suniti, and she was the mother of the prince Dhruva. And Dhruva was just an innocent kid, 5 years old, and he was just trying to be like a kid. He was trying to climb on the lap of his father and have some fun. He saw his older brother do it, and he felt, oh, I could do it too. I can have fun too. But the stepmother, Suruchi, she didn't have much of a heart, and she was favored by the king. So she told Dhruva, I mean, it's pretty evil. She said, you can't play with your father because I am his favorite. And if you want to enjoy the pleasures of the kid, you'll have to die, and then you'll have to be born again into my womb, and then you can have the privilege. That's pretty hard cutting. It's pretty nasty. It's very extremely damaging for a kid to hear those kind of words from an adult. So the problem is she made the mistake, and her husband, King Uttanapat, also made the mistake by not correcting her. And he didn't tell her to shut up. This is not right. So you're like an accomplice to the crime if you don't correct when you're in a position to correct, right? So it was Dhritarashtra, the blind king, did not correct his own son, and he just let Vidura go. And Vidura was kind of like a what do you call it? A thorn in the side. He always went for the truth, but he didn't want to live up to the truth. Dhritarashtra was just into loving his kids, was just power hungry, and he just wanted his boys to have everything and nothing for the nephews. So it's very removed. His character was very removed from being saintly, where you have to see with equilibrium. You have to be fair. There has to be justice and all those kind of things. And that's why we love Vidura. So it's one thing. If the pressure is too high, especially for Maya, you're totally justified in leaving your Maya. Like I know some people, young people will come to join. They said, I don't think I want to. I love the ashram. I love Krishna consciousness, but I don't think I want to stay in this city because this is the city where I'm familiar with, where Maya got me trapped and tangled. Like that street corner over there, the crossroads over there. I did this over there, and I was in deep Maya. And I don't want to go there anymore because it reminds me of the past. So I want to go somewhere far away and join Krishna consciousness in some other place. So that's something we observe as well. So I know we like to do interactiveness and exercise that. So I think maybe I should fermer la bouche, you know, for a bit, and then just see if you have any comments that you want to make thus far. If you like something we said, then maybe you can repeat it. If you don't like it, then also say it, and we'll discuss it. You know, anything at all. I'm open. Okay. Jai. So, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Shamala Kishori. Dasi.
Shama.
Shamala Kishori. Dasi.
Shamala. Can I keep it Shamala?
Sure. Yes. My father is Batu Gopal. We used to travel. Batu Gopal, your godbrother.
Okay, nice. Okay.
I have a question about this verse. There seems to be a contrast in Vidura is pierced by the arrows through his ears and afflicted to the core of his heart. And at the same time, he was not sorry. I noticed that phrase. So he is experiencing like human emotion or pain,
Right.
but he is also able to be detached. So I was wondering if you could comment on that kind of that juxtaposition of
That word sorry really stuck out this morning, didn't it? Okay. Yes, so I would just, I think you got the handle on it. He was not sorry about his decision to leave. He thought it was the correct thing to do. And yeah, he demonstrated vairagya, which is renunciation. And he just felt this is the right moment. It's really the time. It's just like God speaking to me, and I have to leave now. And he didn't feel bad about leaving his responsibilities, but because basically he was trying to be an advisor, mostly, isn't it? To be a support to his older brother, who didn't have he was disabled, right? He was not able to see. So he felt no one's appreciating me in this scenario, and it's just time to go. The time is right. And so he went with full vigor and enthusiasm. I'm Sinu phase of my life. He felt he was in his right place. And to what I know, I don't know if he married or anything, but he was just a single guy. So he had a total privilege to move out and find himself. Of course, he was well found. He was such a grounded person, and that's what we like about him. Whereas Dhritarashtra was this way, that way, and his character is kind of weak when I talk about Dhritarashtra. On the other hand, his younger brother Vidura was very fixed, focused, because he was living in a high conscious state, and he wasn't an advisor like who's the person we are. Chanakya Pandit is a great advisor to dynasty, and I think he was appreciated. So every good king, every good leader has good advisors. Don't think you can make decisions on your own. That's such big illusion. You have to have your collective, let's say, team to help you in decision making. So does that answer the question? I just think it's nicely put. He was not sorry, or he considered the acts of the external supreme. So the external energy is controlled by the internal energy, and Krishna is just saying through an indirect way that get the hell out of that place now. Isn't it funny how Krishna can speak to you through different avenues, ways that you wouldn't dream of, but it becomes quite clear. And Shastra, anyways, will support his actions. Get out of the place where you're not appreciated, where you're not loved, and go where you will be loved and appreciated. Yes.
So you mentioned two things, Maharaj, that you need to make your own decision, but also that don't think you can take all the decisions yourself. So how much does one depend on one's support, consultation, like consulting them, and how much does he have the exercise the freedom of taking that decision? How to have a balance of that?
Well, I mean, consultation should come from a good place. It should come from people who are wise and have had a full life experience, and especially if it's based on Shastra, wisdom, advice of the sadhus, and it's always good to have like a mentor in your life, a spiritual master, or masters, plural, who will give you that kind of guidance. Like, to be honest with you, if we did everything our parents wanted us to do, we would be outright we'll call them karmis, we would be, doing the normal thing. What's the normal thing? We'll party on the weekend, work hard, have lots of kids and all this kind of stuff, which is okay with the family side. But the rest of it, the secular life, most of our parents would just say, have a nice, good secular, enjoy the pleasures, but no advice on spirituality. So if we tell our folks, I want to be a little more spiritual, am I right about that? So I'm not anti-parent. I'm just saying that, in the North American context, parents are, like you come from an Indian background, right? So I can find you a nice girl and all this kind of thing. She shouldn't really be too devotional. You know what I mean? Those kind of things that speak to you. So I think that if wisdom is coming from a place where it's based on rich culture, and our culture, what we understand is the culture of its God-centeredness. And I think that's the most important. Krishna's got to be smack in the middle of our lives. And if someone advises us any other way, then we should have a little doubt about it. And really, I think you should just go to Kalakanta Prabhu and he'll set you straight. Well, we do have to make decisions, as we grow as adults. You have to. You can't just be held by the hand. You have to make some decisions. And the decision of being dharmic, having some principles in your life, is highly important. So.
Maharaj, I just wanted to say that when people do ask us for advice as elders, I like to say, please make a list of the consequences of your choices. Try to look over the horizon and see, if I do this, what will happen?
Yes.
Because often there are forks in the road that are both Krishna conscious.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's good. It's good to have that little foresight and to see what could consequences of going this way. Yeah, a good advisors and counselors, they're going to help you to see a little bit the future, help you to have great insight. Prashadam is ready. That always sounds good. Any burning questions? Well, thank you. Hare Krishna. Oh, I see. Sansare Krishna Bhagavata Say Radha Krishna